Hey everyone. Okay, so it's Friday and I think it's our first full week of read alouds. It's been so long since I've seen you guys that I can't even remember how long it's been. It's just, this is crazy to me. So, let's see. Today is Fun Fact FRI-YAY. So I want to know one fun fact about you that I don't already know. So my one fact for you guys that you don't already know is that I love to read. So my fun fact, you probably already know that I love to read, but my fun fact is that I have a goal to read 60 books this year. Like 60 on my own free time, not read alouds, not at school. Just fun books for me to read on my couch or before bed or whatever. I am a little bit behind. But now that I'm stuck at my house for who knows how long, Miss G is gonna knock some books out. So I did some Barnes & Noble curbside pickup today and have 5 books now that I can add to my list pretty soon. So I'll keep you updated on where I am. Right now, I've read 4. I'm a little behind. Okay, so send me your answer. So your one fun fact. I have seen some comments on Class Dojo and some messages on Class Dojo, and I've gotten some emails with answers, and I love it. I love getting to hear what you guys are answering to these questions. There's my email address, so I'll put it again in the description box. And but Class Dojo is good also, so if you need to send it there, you can. Okay, so we're gonna finish Shiloh today, and then next week on Monday we are going to start The Tale of Despero. This is the one that you guys voted on before we left for spring break, and we thought we would be coming back after like a week, and well, we know the answer to that now. So I'll read this one now that I just hit myself in the face with that, but I'll read this one now that we are at home. So I've got it with me. I picked it up when I was able to get in my classroom last week. So I made sure that was the one thing I had to make sure I got. I got it. Okay. So also next week we'll start our first like official week of distance learning. So this has not been official, my read alouds. This has just been for fun so that I could still see you guys or communicate with you. But next week it starts. So you'll be seeing a lot more of me. And hearing a lot more from me. But I'm going to send more information about that to your parents pretty soon, and they can go over it with you. And it's nothing at all to stress about or be worried about or be scared about. It's going to be fun, and we're going to get through this. And then hopefully in August, I'll see you guys, and I'll get to give you big hugs as you go down to the hall to 4th grade. So lots of exciting stuff happening. Okay, so Shiloh. Sorry, I had to get a drink. Okay, Shiloh. Yesterday we read chapters 13 and 14, and we now know that Judd Travers wanted his dog back by Sunday. And so Marty's family was soaking in this time with Shiloh, this last little bit of time that they get together. And Marty wakes up first of all, he tried to get his friend to find some family way off. He's like, I have to get Shiloh away. As much as I want to have him, I don't want him to go back to Judd. If he goes back to Judd, he's going to get hurt again. He just knows it. And now that he has this little bit of a limp, he's worried that Judd would just kill him because he's not going to be a good hunting dog. He can't run very fast because he's got a limp now. So if he's not going to be any good use to Judd, he knows that Judd will just hurt him or kill him or, who knows what, like just bad stuff. And he doesn't want that to happen to him. So he tries to get his friend to find some family, and he's like, I don't have any family. All my family is allergic to dogs. So no dog for us. And he's just Marty just stresses about it. I have to get Shiloh away from Judd. So he lies awake Saturday night, and he barely sleeps any at all, and he finally realizes what he has to do. He has to go talk to Judd Travers. So he gets up before everybody else in the whole family. He leaves Shiloh in the box. Shiloh tries to come with him, And he's like, no, Shiloh, you have to stay. And Shiloh was good and he stayed. So he goes off in the woods between his house and Judd Travers' house. And as he's getting closer, he sees this doe, which is a female deer. It's like the mom deer. Anyway, so he sees this doe standing off in the woods, and she's eating, and she looks so peaceful. And he's like, I don't understand how anybody could ever hurt a deer. And the next thing he knows, he hears this crack, and the deer takes off. And then he hears another crack, and somebody is shooting the deer out of season. So this completely changes his whole conversation he was going to have with Judd Travers. Because here comes Judd through the clearing, and he's the one that shot the doe. And boy, was he surprised when he saw Marty. So, anyway, long story short, they talked, and Marty's like, listen, if you don't let me have Shiloh, then I'm going to tell the game warden that you're shooting deer out of season, and he's going to find all this evidence that you were, and who's he going to believe? Like, my dad is this trustworthy man in the town, and nobody likes you. So, I mean, he didn't say it in those words, but, everybody knows that Judd is mean and he does stuff out of season, and, just he never gets caught. And so this would have been the one time that the game warden could have caught him. And so, of course, he would have believed Marty and his family. Anyway, so they come to this decision that as long as Marty does not tell anybody, not a soul, that he was shooting a deer out of season, and he has to come work for Judd for like 2 or 3 hours a week, or 2 or 3 hours a day, until he gets up to 40 hours, he can have Shiloh. So he's got to earn him. Okay, so his first thing was to help him drag this deer that he shot out of season to his house. And now he is having this internal struggle about, I want to save Shiloh, but here I am helping Judd with this deer that he shot out of season. Like, I'm also equally now as guilty because I'm helping with it. So, but he, in the back of his mind, he's like, I get to keep Shiloh. So that's what's most important. So he's so excited about it. And so when we left off yesterday, he was running back to his house. So excited that he gets to keep Shiloh. Okay. So we are on chapter 15, which is the last chapter of the book. So let's see what happens. Closer I get to home, though, the bigger the grin on my face. And when I burst in the kitchen, I got a smile from ear to ear. Dad's having his coffee, and Ma's in the living room listening to the Sunday morning service by Brother Jonas. She watches him every Sunday at 7, which tells me what time it is already. Where you been? Says Dad, and I can tell Ma's paying attention too. You up and gone, we got to worrying. I slid into my chair and almost have to push my cheeks in to keep from smiling all the way around my head. Well, I went to see Judd Travers, I say, still breathless. And I'm buying his dog. Ma gets up and comes to the kitchen doorway. What? I thought he wasn't selling, says Dad, looking at me hard. Well, he wasn't, but I talked him into it. He needs help around his place, and he says if I work hard to help him for 20 hours... Oh, I was wrong when I told you earlier, 40. It was 20. Sorry. He wasn't, but I talked him into it. He needed help around his place. He says if I work hard for him for 20 hours at $2 an hour, that will pay for the $40 he wants for Shiloh. Ma smiles, getting broader by the minute. I don't believe it, she says. Shiloh's yours? Not yet, but he will be. And we don't have to take him over to Judd's. Before I can get the last word out, she's got her arms around me, squeezing the breath from my chest almost. I think Shiloh can smell Judd Travers on me. He can smell the deer's blood, too. I know by the way he sniffs my shoes. But finally, he just can't stand it no more. He's joyful I'm back, and he's licking me, welcoming me home. But Dad's still judging my face. I can't figure it out, Marty. Judd seemed pretty definite about keeping that dog. What was said between you? I really didn't want to lie no more. If I tell Ma and Dad everything except about the deer, that's lying by omission. Ma says not telling the whole truth. But if I tell about the deer after promising Judd I wouldn't, then I would have lied to Judd. Well, I'd rather lie to Judd than to my folks, but I figure it this way. Dad wouldn't report Judd even if he saw him shoot a doe out of season, because that's the way it's been around here. That don't necessarily make it right, of course, but with him feeling that way, nothing's going to change if I do tell him about Judd and the deer. And because I promise not to, I don't. Right now, the most important thing to me is Shiloh. Well, I told him I wasn't going to give Shiloh back no matter what, I tell my dad. They are sure staring at me now, him and Ma. You said that to Judd Travers? Dad asked, scooting back in his chair. Only thing left to say, only thing I could think of to do. I hadn't already tried. I was going to tell him he could take me to court and I'd have to tell the judge how he kicks his dogs. But I didn't have to go that far. I guess he needed help around his place. Ma turns to Dad. You know, I think it's because Shiloh was hurt. I think he figures that dog's never going to be what it was, and that's why he was willing to let it go. Figured he'd get rid of a lame dog and best the bargain, too. That's what I figure, I say. And at last Dad begins to smile. So we got ourselves a brand new member of the family, he says to me, and that's about the nicest thing I heard said in this house in my life. Then Becky and Darylyn wake up and faced because they think we're taking Shiloh over to Judd. And I tell them the news, and Darylyn, she starts dancing, and Becky joins in, whirling herself around. And then Shiloh, smiling his dog smile. Everybody whooping and carrying on. Ma turns off the TV and makes waffles with a big pat of margarine in the center of each one and hot homemade brown sugar syrup filling the plates. She even makes a waffle for Shiloh. We're going to make that dog sick if we're not careful. Well, now all we have to do is worry about how we can afford to feed him as well as ourselves, Dad says finally. But there's food for the body and food for the spirit, and Shiloh sure enough feeds our spirit. We about pet Shiloh to death. Every time he turns around, somebody's got a hand on him somewhere. I take him out for the first gentle run since he got hurt, and once up on the hill, him running free, the good feeling inside me grows bigger and bigger, and I have to let it out. I hunch up my shoulders and go, howl! And Shiloh jumps up and looks at me. Howl! I go again, and out of joy and jubilation, the way they do in church. And suddenly, Shiloh joins in with a bark. A pitiful kind of bark. He's gonna have to be taught how. But it's a happy bark, and he's learning. The only bit of sadness left in me is for that deer, wondering too about whose business it is when somebody breaks the law. Wonder if Dad wouldn't never tell on Judd no matter what he's done. I bet he would. There's got to be times when that one person does that. There's got to be times that what one person does is everybody's business. Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I'm waiting on Judd's porch when he pulls up. All his dogs is chained out to the side of his house, and they get to barking like crazy. I don't try to get near them because a chained dog can be mean. I've already restacked Judd's wood pile, but he wants me to do it again and put the big pieces here and the little ones there. He's looking mean and grumpy, like maybe he's disgusted with himself for letting me have that dog so easy. When I finish the wood pile, Judd hands me a hoe. You see that garden? I nod. You see that corn? I want the dirt chopped up so fine I can sift my fingers, he tells me. Now I can see what he's getting at. He is going to make it so there's no way I can please him. I'll put in my 20 hours, and he'll tell me my work was no good and he wants his dog back. I hoe till I got blisters on both hands, sweat pouring down my back. I wish I could do my work early in the morning before the sun's so fierce, but I don't complain. I take off my t-shirt finally, wrap it around my head, and keep the sweat out of my eyes, and I keep on. My shoulders are so red I know they'll be hurting worse than anything the next morning. And they do. Next afternoon, Judd sets me to scrubbing down the sides of his trailer and his porch, shining the windows, raking the yard. He sits out in a folding chair in the shade, drinking a cold tea. Don't offer me nothing, no, not even water. I hate him more than the devil. My mouth's so dry it feels like fur. Third day, though, he puts out a quart jar of water for me when I go to pick his beans. I bend over the rows so long, dropping the beans into a bucket, I think I'm going to be stuck bent for my life. When I'm through, Judd sort of motions me to the porch, like I can sit there if I want while I drink my water. I almost fall onto the porch, glad to be in the shade. Well, looks like you got yourself some blisters, he says. Oh, I'm okay, I tell him, and I take another long drink. How's Shiloh? He asks. First time he's called the dog by name. He's doing fine. He's still got a limp, but he eats good. Judd lifts his drink to his lips. Would have been a good hunting dog if I could have just kept him at home, he says. The other dogs never run off. I think about that a while. Well, I say finally, each one is different. Well, that's the truth. Kick one and he just goes under the porch for an hour. Kick another and he goes off and doesn't come back. I try my best to think about what to say to that, like how come he has to kick them at all? Then I figured nobody likes to be preached at, no matter how much he needs it, least of all Judd Travers, who is 30 years old if he's a day. Some dogs, it makes them mean when you kick them, I say finally. Other dogs, it just makes them scared. And Shiloh got scared. Well, I never beat my dogs with a stick, Judd goes on. Never did that in my life. I don't say anything right away. Finally, though, I ask, well, how's your dogs doing? Raring out to go rabbit hunting, Judd says. We look over at his 3 dogs, all pulling at their chains and snarling at each other. That biggest dog now, Judd goes on, he's the loudest squaller I got. I can tell from his racket whether he's following a fresh track or an old one, if he's running a ditch, swimming, or treed a coon. Well, that's pretty good, I say. Littlest one, he's nothing but a trashy dog. He'll run down almost anything, except for what I'm after. I hope the others will learn him something. And the middle dog, well, she gives a lot of mouth too. She even barks at dead trees. The dogs were fighting now, and Judd throws his can at him. Y'all shut up, he yells. Hush. He hits the biggest dog, and they all scatter. They don't much like being chained, Judd says. Well, I guess nobody would, I tell him. I put in 10 hours that week, meaning I make up 20 of the dollars I owe him. I got 1 more week to go. When I leave off an afternoon for Judd's, Shiloh goes with me just so far. Then he gets to whining and he turns back. I'm glad he won't go on with me. I don't want him anywhere near Judd Travers. Monday of the 2nd week, it seems like Judd's out to break my back or my spirit, or both. This time he's got me splitting wood. I gotta roll a big old piece of locust wood over to the stump in his side yard, give it a wedge in it, then hit the wedge with a sledgehammer again and again till the wood falls apart in pieces to fit his wood stove. Then another log and another. I can hardly get the sledgehammer up over my head, and when I bring it down, my arms is so wobbly, my aim ain't true. I almost dropped the hammer. This ain't a job for me, and if Dad saw what Judd was making me do, he'd tell him it wasn't safe. But Judd's out to teach me a lesson, and I'm out to teach him one. So I keep at it. I know it takes me twice as long as Judd to split that wood, but I don't stop. And all the while, Judd sits on his porch, drinking his drink, watching me sweat. Sure does his heart good, I can tell. Then he says something that almost stops my heart cold. Laughs and says, Boy, you sure are putting in a whole lot of work for nothing. I rest my back a moment, wipe one arm across my face. Shiloh's something, I tell him. You think you're going to get my dog just 'cause you got some handwriting on a piece of paper? Judd laughs and drinks some more. Why, that paper's not good for anything but to blow your nose on. You don't have a witness. I look at Judd. What do you mean? You don't even know what's legal and what not, do you? Well, you show a judge a paper without a witness signature and he'll laugh at you right out of the courthouse. You gotta have somebody sign that says that he saw you strike a bargain. Judd laughs some more, and nobody here but my dogs. I feel sick inside, like maybe I could throw up. I can't think of what to do or what to say, so I just lift the sledgehammer again and go on splitting the wood. Judd laughs even harder. What are you, boys, some kind of fool? And when I don't answer, he says, What you breaking your back for? I want the dog, I tell him, and I raise the sledgehammer again. That night, when I'm sitting out on the porch with Ma and Dad, Shiloh in my lap, I check it. What's a witness? I say. Well, somebody who knows the Lord Jesus and don't mind telling about it, says Ma. No, the other kind. Well, somebody who sees something happen and they sign that it's true? Dad says. What you got on your mind now, Marty? Well, you make a bargain with somebody, you gotta have a witness, I ask, not answering. Well, if you want it done right and legal, I suppose you do. Well, I can't bear to have Dad know I was so stupid that I made an agreement with Judd Travers without a witness. What are you thinking on? Dad asks again, hunching up his shoulders while Ma rubs his back. Well, I was just thinking how you sell something is all, land and stuff. Dad looks at me quick. Well, you're not trying to sell off some of my land for that dog, are you? No, I tell him. I'm glad I got him off track, but I sure am worried. Every trace of that deer's gone now. Don't know what Judd done with the meat. Rented him a meat locker somewhere, maybe. But there's no bones around, no hide. If I report him now, I can't prove anything. Next day, Judd Travers calls me dumb. He sees me waiting for him on his steps and says I must have a head as thick as a coconut. Didn't he already tell me that that paper wasn't worth nothing? I just look straight through him. You and me made a bargain, I say, and I aim to keep my part of it. What do you want me to do today? Judd just points to the sledgehammer again and doubles over laughing like it's the biggest joke he's ever played on somebody in his whole life. I can feel the sweat trickle down my back, and I ain't even started yet. 4 o'clock comes, and I finally finish that wood, but Judd pretends he's asleep. He's got his head laid back, mouth half open, but I know it's just another way he's gonna trick me. He wants me to sneak on home. Then he'll say I never kept my part of the bargain. So I just go in his shed and put the sledgehammer back, take out the sickle, and go to tackle the weeds down by his mailbox. I work on those weeds for half an hour, and when 5 o'clock comes, I start back towards this shed, and I see him watching me, and I walk over. Well, sickle's getting dull, Judd. You got a whetstone around, I could sharpen it for you. He studies me for a good long while in the shed, he says. I go get it, sit on a stump, running the whetstone over the blade. It's past 5 o'clock, says Judd. I know, I say. Well, I ain't gonna pay you 1 cent more, he says. It's okay, I tell him. I never saw a look of puzzlement on a man's face like I see on him. Thing I decide on when I hear Judd's again the next day is that I got no choice. All I can do is stick to my side of the deal and see what happens. All in the world I can do. If I quit now, he'll come for Shiloh, and we're right back where we started. I don't want to make him mad. No use having a winner and a loser. The bad feelings would just go on. I don't want to have to worry about Shiloh when he's running loose and I'm in school. I don't want to feel that Judd's so sore at me that he'll think of an excuse at all to run his truck over my dog. Only sign in this world we're making progress is the water Judd puts out for me. This day, it even has ice in it. Judd don't say 1 word more about the witness. In fact, when I'm through working and sit down on the porch to finish off the water, Judd talks a little more than usual. Only bond we've got between us is dogs, but at least that's something. I decide to say something nice to Judd, tell him how good looking his dogs are. Giving a compliment to Judd Travers is like filling a balloon with air. You can actually see his chest swell up. 40, 30, 45, he says when I tell about those dogs. Those are their names? That's what I paid for them, he says. If they had a little more meat on their bones, I figured they'd be the best looking hounds in Tyler County, I tell him. Judd sits there, turning his drink around in his hands, and he says, well, maybe he could use a bit more fat. I nurse my water along a little too, and when you'd first get interested in hunting, I ask him, your pa take you out when you was little? Judd spits. Didn't know a man who couldn't chew tobacco at the same, Judd spits, and he chooses tobacco at the same time. I never knew a man that could do that, but Judd does. Once or twice, he says. Only nice thing about my dad that I remember. It's the first time in my life I felt anything like sorry for Judd Travers. If you weighed on it a postal scale, it would hardly move the needle at all, but I suppose there was a fraction of an ounce of sorry for him somewhere inside of me. When I thought about all the things I'd done with my own dad and about how Judd could only remember hunting, that was pretty pitiful. Thursday, when I got there, Judd's meanness has got the best of him again, because I can see he's running out of work for me to do and just giving me work to make me sweat. Digging a ditch to dump his garbage in, he says. Hoe that cornfield again, scrub the porch, weed the bean patch. But close on to 5 o'clock, he seems to realize that I'm only going to be there 1 more time. I'd worked really hard that day, did anything he asked, and done it better than he'd asked me to. Well, 1 more day, Judd says when I sit down at last with my water. What are you going to do with that dog once he's yours? Just play, I tell him, and love him. We sit there side by side while the clouds change places, puff out, the wind blowing them this way and that. I'm wondering how things would have turned out if it hadn't been for that deer, if I'd have just knocked on Judd's front door 2 weeks ago and told him I wasn't going to give Shiloh up. What would have happened then? To tell the truth, I think Ma's right. Judd would have sold him to me and buy because of Shiloh's limp. Judd's the kind that don't like that in a dog, same as he don't want a dent or a scratch of any kind on his pickup truck. It makes him look bad, he thinks. His truck's not going to be perfect to make up for the ways Judd's not. The last day I work for Judd, he inspects every job I do, finds fault with the least little thing, keeps pestering me, making me hang around, do my work over. And when it's time to go, I say, well, I guess that's it then. Judd don't answer. He just stands in the doorway of his trailer looking at me, and then I get the feelings he's going to tell me I can take that paper he signed and used it for kindling. Tell me I can call the game warden if I want. There's not a trace of that deer left. The 2 weeks of work I put in for him was just long enough for rain to wash away the blood, for the field grass to spring back up where the deer was shot. But he doesn't say anything like that, though, so I start off for home, chest tight. Just a minute, says Judd. I stop, and he goes back inside the trailer, me waiting there in the yard. What am I going to do? And then Judd's back in the doorway again, and he's got something in his hand, and he comes down the steps halfway. Here, he says, and it's a dog collar. An old collar, but it's better than the one Shiloh's got now. It might be a little big, but he'll grow into it. I look at Judd, and I take the collar. I don't know how we done it, but somehow we learned to get along. Thanks a lot, I tell him. You got yourself a dog, he says, and he goes inside again, and he don't ever look back. I got home that evening, and Ma's made a chocolate cake to celebrate. A real cake, too. Not no Betty Crocker. After dinner, Ma and Dad go on the porch. The four of us roll around on the grass together. Darylyn, Becky, Shiloh, and me. Becky tries to give Shiloh her butterfly kiss, but he don't hold still long enough for her eyelashes to bat against him. Just gotta look everywhere on her face. And long after Becky and Darylyn go inside, I lay out there on my back in the grass, not caring about the dew. Shiloh against me crosswise, his paws on my chest. I look at the dark closing in, sky getting more and more purple, and I'm thinking how nothing is as simple as you guess. Not right or wrong, not Judd Travers, not me or this dog I got here. But the good part is I saved Shiloh, and so I opened my eyes some. Now, that ain't bad for 11. And that's the end. I love it. I hope you did too. Okay, so Fun Fact Friday. FRI-YAY. FRI-YAY. It's Friday. So tell me one fun fact that I don't already know about you and send it to my email or Class Dojo, or I don't know if you can find some other way to get a hold of me, a pigeon carrying a letter, something. Okay, I can't wait to hear your answers, and I will see you on Monday on Google Meets. Okay, bye.